Bienvenidos and welcome back to Puro Pinche Gol, the place we discuss all things Usmnt y la selección mexicana. My name is Adrian, joining me once again my co-host Tocayo, Adrian. Adrian, man, thank you for taking over that last episode and the last couple ones by yourself, man. But I'm back here, everything's moving smoothly with the house, so hopefully no more breaks. But how are you, bro?
Hey, no, anytime, dude. This is a good thing of having, having a tocayo that can help you out. And yeah, dude, it's all good. I'm glad that you're back now in San Antonio, settling down. And that should lead us to do some other interesting content anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully soon we're able to kind of record in person a couple episodes, like two of us sitting down, and yeah, definitely more interesting content coming in the works. So stay here with PPG for more Usmnt and Mexico content. But on today's episode, it's about Mauricio Pochettino, obviously new head coach. You know, we've made a video about it a couple weeks ago when it was first kind of leaked that he was going to be the new head coach of the Usmnt. Now it became official last week, and he had his unveiling. And, first couple of interviews, he sat down and done interviews in Spanish, done interviews in English. And, the hype, I mean, the hype is obviously still there, but it's kind of settled down now. People are starting to reflect and really say, and really analyze and come back down to earth. You know, there was that initial interview where he mentioned that, their goal of the Usmnt, win the World Cup. If you're not playing to win it, what are you doing? And while that's admirable, I mean, I think people needed to take, relax and really analyze, the team that the Usmnt has. And, that's probably not a realistic goal, but ultimately he came back last week and mentioned that when he was having conversations to sign on the directivos, the Soccer Federation, kind of told him that the goal for 2026 is the quarterfinals of the World Cup, the home World Cup. Obviously, that's one extra game. It's not the fifth game anymore, right? It's the sixth game now because of how many teams are in the new World Cup. But yeah, what do you think now that the hype has settled? Is this a good goal for Mauricio Pochettino going forward?
Man, this is, I well, hold on. Is this a good goal? I don't know. I don't think it's a great goal. I think it perhaps could be a somewhat conservative goal, right? I like the fact that this whole of shoot for the stars, maybe you land the moon kind of concept where, hey, if you're not planning to win the World Cup, what are you doing? What do you even try? Yeah, I like that attitude. I think you have to pair it with a sense of reality, right? And maybe this quarterfinal goal is somewhat realistic in the sense that, hey, this is perhaps what confidently the USA can reach. But do I like it? I don't know, man. I don't think they should. I don't think Pochettino and the Ussf should sell themselves short. Like reaching a quarterfinal isn't anything that the USMNT hasn't done in the past. And to aim to reach a similar level that you reached maybe 22 years ago, or 24 years ago, it's somewhat for me
Stagnant?
kind of stagnant, or maybe even taking a step back, man. I understand that not going to a World Cup in 2018 was a huge blow,
Uh-huh.
but telling your players, telling the fans, telling everyone who is behind the USSF that, hey, our goal, our aim is to just reach that quarterfinal, be in the best top eight of the world in the tournament at least. I don't think it's necessarily, it doesn't send a good message. We keep on complaining or making comments about how players are, very, you know, uh, toned down. They're not
Complacent.
necessarily, complacent. They're not necessarily making the biggest effort. Like they feel so comfortable with what they are that putting them in a position where knowing that, hey, you only have to reach quarterfinals to feel successful plays, I think it's going to play against the Pochettino and the USSF in the near future.
Okay, so probably not the best of starts for Pochettino there. No, but I agree with you. I mean, if you're not playing to win it, why are you playing? But again, you gotta have that. This is USA. It's not Germany,
Yeah,
France,
yeah.
Argentina. You don't go out and claim that you're going to win the World Cup. Um, should, like you said, I mean, I have another note here. Should the USSF aim higher in the quarterfinal? It's kind of hard to figure out what should be the aim, just because it is a home World Cup. You know that when you're hosting, you usually have that momentum behind you. We've seen it time and time and again. Those teams typically get quarterfinal or further, right? We saw it with, I guess, the only one that really didn't was South Africa. But Brazil 2014, Germany 2000,
South Korea.
South Korea, South Korea 2002. I guess Qatar didn't as well, but those are outliers. But aiming for Should they be higher? I think so, especially since these players are going to be reaching their peak. You just made a huge investment in the women's game. You just made a huge investment in the men's game. You made a huge investment in infrastructure in the Atlanta, Georgia, training facility. So we'll see how Pochettino's really, maybe he's just saying that in public, and with his first meeting with the guys, he'll claim, that they got to go and push for higher than that. So we'll see as this develops, in the next 2 years. If the goal is met, maybe that was just a goal for Pochettino. If it's met, there are plans beyond 2026 between the federation.
Okay.
Maybe a long-term goal. 2030 plan, right, to make it further. And, 2 years for this one, maybe that's a quick goal that he needs to meet in order to get that extension. But, there were talks when he was getting brought on board. Will he be living in Europe? Will he be living in the United States, there at Atlanta, where the new training facility is? I think it's been confirmed that, JT Baston said, that the CEO of the Usmnt, that, or Ussoccer said that, they're still looking for his house in Georgia. So to go from Barcelona to Georgia to Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah, I know. There's going to be a big change for my guy. Yeah.
But I think it's good that he'll be living there to kind of be able to kind of be at the headquarters of Ussoccer and see both, European players, since obviously the big hub of the airports in the United States, easy travel to anywhere in Europe, and be here for the MLS to be able to see those players. So a good situation, at least for him. Maybe not in terms of things to do in Georgia, but at least for soccer wise, he'll be there.
Isn't it interesting that, for example, people aren't necessarily annoyed with the fact that he's going to be living in Georgia, understanding that the majority of the eligible or talent pool is in Europe, and he knows Europe, right? He probably could have, made a case for saying, "Hey, I'm going to stay in Europe because it's just closer to everyone." At least the 30 players that I'm going to be considering for the first team. And then the other hand, you have Vasco Aguirre, who is not going to live in Mexico. He's going to be living in continue to live in Madrid, I think, or somewhere in Spain. And Mexico has what? Maybe like 10 players exactly in Europe, right. And everyone's making a huge deal about it. I mean, it's one of those small comparisons that we normally make here. We probably shouldn't, but it just goes to show how different each country sees the national team, right?
Yeah, and how I guess Vasco sees the importance of those European players, and maybe Pochettino and Vasco's experience with La Federación allows him to do that, while Pochettino's new to the Federation, probably doesn't want to burn any bridges yet. And I mean, maybe it wasn't his choice probably a contract choice that he wasn't able to, non-negotiable, right? Since they invested so much money in that facility, they want the coach to live there. They want to be able to market him there. But yeah, I agree that that's probably his top 30 players are in Europe. He has connections all over Europe, like you said. Be able to talk to those clubs, talk to those players more often. That is kind of a head scratcher, but he'll be there. And talking another point kind of goes hand in hand with Mauricio Pochettino hiring, but the fan pressure. I was watching a interview with JT Baston, the CEO of Ussoccer, with Fútbol America's Hercules Gomez and Sebastián Salazar, where he mentioned that a lot of going after such top talent for managerial level really did come a lot from the fan pressure. We saw it a lot on Twitter. We saw it on social media. We saw it at games. He said people would come up to him and like curse him out at restaurants. So I think, just quick summary here, I think the fan pressure worked, and I think that was the reason Berhalter got fired, and they were able to shoot for the stars with this Mauricio Pochettino hiring. So keep it up if you think your voice ain't being heard.
Yeah, it has to be the first time that I ever witnessed or saw this kind of movement in the US. I think it's a good sign that people are getting more invested in the team, that the sport is becoming more popular, and it isn't just maybe like a kids game or like a college level kind of sort of game. And MLS is just an outlier out there that has sort of a fan base, but it isn't really extensively popular. So it's a good sign. But I also, on the same, it's a double-edged sword, man. Because I think everyone wants the federation to keep close tabs on what the fans are saying and understanding what the fan would like to see on the team, but it's a delicate balance between I make my calls based on what the fans want, or should I make my calls based on what I think is best for the project as a professional of the sport, as a professional with a plethora of experience that is pretty much on a daily basis with the team, on the freaking on the background, on the back end, building things up. Like, again, it's a good sign, but the USSF must be wary that they have to be super super conscious on how they handle this. It's okay, I think, for JT Baston to come out and say, hey, it was, the fan pressure played a lot, but on the other hand is, well, we have fulfilled the demand. We're going to stick with Pochettino. If the results don't come, don't expect us to change our mind just because you're complaining.
Well, and that goes, like you said, double edged sword. The fans will expect them to change their mind because it worked before, right? So that could lead to even more clashing between the fans and
Exactly.
the federation.
Hmm.
But I think I man, a couple quick thoughts as we kind of get to the end of this episode. What can fans expect from Pochettino? Obviously, a lot different coach and Triple G. We're not going to dive down in his tactics and his formations here. More of a higher level. I think first it starts with a new identity, right?
Hmm.
We talked about at the beginning of this episode, there might be some of that complacency that was with Triple G, being that Pochettino came out and said that the goal is the quarterfinal. But I think, the way we've seen him run his teams, Chelsea, Spurs, PSG, I think these players are going to be fighting day in and day out to have that starting spot. I don't think it's going to be a given spot anymore. I think the leadership council's out the window. And I think there's going to have a new identity of a team and with less complacency and more competition. At least that's what fans hope, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest. I guess it's the low hanging fruit that he can actually grab and snatch right away. Day one on the first match that he's able to coach. That is the number one thing he needs to do, is instill a different sense of commitment. Change the identity of the team. The thing that we have seen for the last 6 years is not working. It's not meshing well with the players, and it needs to change so the fans can rally behind the team. And yeah, it's a matter of switching that mentality on the likes of Pulisic and the rest of the team, where it's like, hey, yes, you made it to the first team, but there's a long road ahead of y'all if you want to become not only a legend for the USMNT, but perhaps a generational shift in the sport for the country, right?
Yeah. And I think also, we can expect from Pochettino's reign, obviously coached by part of the Marcelo Bielsa school, playing higher quality competition.
Hmm.
He has those links in Europe. He has those links in England. There's already talks of getting a match scheduled before the World Cup with the England FA, with the England national team. Take it with a grain of salt because there's no qualifiers. So these higher quality competitions are going to be at the expense, not the expense, but whenever those teams are available, it's not going to be USA being able to call the shots because those other teams are going to be playing qualifiers, going to be playing Nations League. So the US is really at the mercy of the other teams when they're able to schedule those friendlies. But I think with Pochettino's connections, there's more chances of higher quality matches with other teams, not named Mexico and Canada, and also the chance to play more away from home, which is something the USMNT needs to do because they're horrible away from home. And that starts with playing Guadalajara next month, right? I mean, that wasn't because of Pochettino, that was announced before him, but it's a good start and a good first test for Pochettino ahead of taking charge of USMNT.
Yeah, man, it's time to take all these players out of their comfort zone, playing freaking Ohio or whatever they like to play, right? Granted, I don't know if Guadalajara is going to be as hostile as any other spot, but yeah, I think it's a good start. I think it's a good test for all of these young lads out there to see if they can withstand and hold their ground at a more aggressive environment, a more hostile environment. So this is great, and I would love to see the USMNT playing somewhere in Europe. And like, it might sound crazy, but go play in Asia, dude. Play in Asia, play in Africa, play in that part of the world. Like it's just it's just gonna help you build that resilience that you need, right? Playing on different environments with
South
humidity,
America, yeah.
yeah, like freaking dry air in South America where all the stadiums are falling apart and whatnot. so yeah,
Right.
I think it's a good start.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap up this episode, brother. You guys, listeners, let us know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on this Pochettino? What he said about the USMNT's goal for the 2026 World Cup. What do you think that he's going to instill into this team? What kind of mentality? How excited are you? Let us know in the comments below. I think, brothers, wrap up this episode. Where can listeners find us?
They can always find us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. You can also find us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast on. Last but not least, you can also find us on Instagram and TikTok. We post memes, latest news, and shorts of our episodes.
Yeah, so be sure to follow us on your preferred social media platform of choice and keep it here at PPG with more Mexico and USMNT content. Other than that, man, good episode. See you in the next one.
Take it easy.
See ya.
Deuce.